Welcome to your Sagittarius horoscopes for the last week of March, the 24th through the 30th. And interestingly enough, we are moving into the shadow period of the first Mercury retrograde of the year, which is a full Aries Mercury retrograde. So guess what that means for you guys? It means that we're going to have another Sagittarius Mercury retrograde this year, as all of the retrogrades are in fire signs, which makes communication very aggressive. Fire energy is aggressive. It's got a lot of energy behind it also, but we're really looking at, especially with the Mercury retrograde in Aries, we're really looking at how this type of communication is amplified and fueled by situations that are left stagnant, if that makes sense. So we're not necessarily changing things. We're just sort of letting things be what they are and hope that the problem goes away. And of course it doesn't, and it blows up in your face and it forces you to deal with it. Uncomfortable, yes. Nobody wants to deal with that. No. Unfortunately, what we want is not always what we get. And that's really the lesson in this, specifically for this week, because we still have Pallas Athene influencing things. And up until now, Pallas Athene has been direct and in forward movement. So it's all about fighting against things that you don't like, that are happening in your life that you can't control. But about midweek, Pallas Athene goes retrograde, all of a sudden taking that fight away. And it feels like your hands are tied behind your back and you can't do anything about these changes. Interestingly enough, this happens right before the moon moves into Sagittarius, right at the end of the week, Friday and Saturday. And it does, pardon me, move into your sign with some challenges, of course, but also with some helpful aspects at the same time. We're going to first look at the challenges here as the moon moves into opposition, or comes into your sign, I should say, in an opposition with, I can't remember which one. Now we're looking at it with Uranus, just as it's coming into your sign on Friday. Uranus's focus really is on your support system. And while we're really focused on your day-to-day schedule, it does kind of feel like, you know, somebody is not supporting your need to focus on whatever your goals are for that day or for that week or for the end of the week or for the weekend or what have you. And you really get excited about, this is what I want to focus on. And everybody else just can't seem to get on board with that, unfortunately. And it does kind of feel like, because it's Uranus's energy, it sort of feels like this crazy, out of this world way of dealing with it. It's not the norm of, somebody coming in and, like a kid always coming in wanting food when you're trying to focus on school, or wanting a ride somewhere. It is very self-involved in some cases, this energy, but it also feels like it's almost like all different personalities. It's really hard for me to explain it. Maybe it'll make more sense when you're living through it, if that makes sense. Also, the moon does come into your sign in a square with Mars, which is focused on long-term career goals here. So you're putting all of this, your energy of all the energy into your day-to-day schedule to create these things that you've been putting off and want to create. You're getting really excited about it, and it feels like everybody just seems to be getting in the way of it, which is really frustrating. And that opposition does leave, but the square continues into Saturday as it opens up to Mars and Saturn. So it's almost like your responsibilities are getting in the way of what you want to create, even though it's your responsibility to create it in the first place. I know it doesn't make any sense at all. The good news is is the trines that are counterbalancing these challenges as the moon first comes into your sign in a trine with Venus and continues that trine into the sun, which are both focused on your career goals. So there's a couple of different ways that I can interpret this. One is that if you've been putting off your career goals and you're focusing on something else because you're afraid of what's happening with your career goals, it's almost like the universe is going to take that other focus away so that you can finish what you started, if that makes sense. The other way for me to interpret this is it's really, really important that you don't take on so much that you get overwhelmed by it, which is a very typical Sagittarian thing to do. It's all or nothing with you guys, right? Which is fine in some cases, but it's also a means of self-sabotage. A lot of times we take on so much at one time because we're trying to prove that we can take on that much because a lot of times we're trying to run away from something. So we put all of our focus onto something else so that we don't have to deal with that thing that we're running away from. And we all have something. And then it just becomes so overwhelming that you run right back to that thing that you're trying to avoid. It is a form of self-sabotage to take on more than you know that you can finish because it's constant proof that you never get through anything or you never get anything done, if that makes sense. Motivation is not something that you wake up with. It's not something that you're born with. It's something that you have to give yourself daily. And some days are easier than others. I mean, honestly, the more I think about what I have to get done, the less motivated I am to do it. So the best way for me to deal with getting through the day and making the most of that day in terms of productivity is to just get up, not think about it, and do it. I wind up getting so much done because I'm not thinking about all the things that I need to get done. If I spend too much time thinking about it, I overwhelm myself and I get nothing done, you know? And that is very similar for Sagittarians do this a lot because in a way it is a form of self-sabotage and proof that you just can't do it, if that makes sense. What's interesting about Pallas Athene being retrograde during all of this is that she's no longer the influence. It's like the moon came in and tapped her out and said, let me take over here for a minute. And rather than fighting for your time, it sort of feels like your time is being taken up. But instead of fighting against that, it's an opportunity to take a step back and ask yourself, why is this happening? What am I supposed to be learning from this? And inevitably, it helps you fully understand what the fear is and what you're fighting against, if that makes sense. So that's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do consider sending a tip or donation to my coffee link in the description. Really appreciate that. You guys are awesome. I am Melissa Bruce, Heavy Metal Psychic, and I will see you guys next week. And in the meantime, you guys, I know you're going to make it a great week. You always do. Challenges are just, life's little way of saying, hey, you can't have too much fun. And I know Sagittarians don't like to hear that. But it's not all about fun either. Sometimes it's about making the best of what you got and creating something phenomenal with it. So I am looking forward to seeing what that is. And I will see you guys next week. Make it a great week.